Could Ruto be Sanemi's long-lost son who learned trash breathing? Hey guys, how are you? I hope you're doing well. I'm the Monio, the interdimensional demon who talks about Gachiakuta the most on YouTube, and you're on my channel. Let's get straight to the point. To understand how powers work in Gachiakuta, first, you need to understand three basic concepts. Who are the users of this power living in this world, the power objects these users have and what they're for, and the type of energy they use to fight. Then we'll talk specifically about Ruto and why he uses these powers differently than all the other characters. But let's take it one step at a time. First, we have the givers, who are the people who can transform ordinary objects into powerful weapons, called Jinki, or vital instruments. This happens when these objects are powered by Shiny Eye, also called Thought, a mysterious energy source possessed by the inhabitants of the earth. Thus, each weapon has a special ability, as the wielders have the ability to draw power from their Jinki to fight the trash beasts, the monsters that attack Ruto in the second episode. A very important detail is that there are no limitations on who wants to use this power. In theory, anyone, good or bad, can become a giver, which is why throughout the story, Ruto will face so many enemies who are also givers. But the Monio, does that mean that if I'm a giver, I can take any object I want, and it will be transformed into a Jinki? And I tell you no, because for that to happen, something deeper is needed. People become givers after years of harboring some precious feeling for the objects in question, as in the case of Ruto, who has had his gloves since he was very young. But in the case of Ruto's gloves specifically, they have something more. We'll talk about this later in the video, because before that, it's important to mention a few more things. For example, each giver can only use one Jinki, and because of this, stealing a Jinki from a giver not only renders them powerless, but is also a sign of disrespect. And curiously, the concept of giver and Jinki is known by some people in the sphere, in the superficie, where Ruto is currently located. This is common knowledge. This means that most people know where they get their powers from, and thus the general public, who despise them, refer to all givers as dependents, due to how obsessed they are with a particular item. To better understand, it's interesting to examine the meaning of the word giver in Japanese, which means one who passes through people, or one who connects worlds, the intermediary. So, we can say that a giver is basically an intermediary between the object and the power. The word Shiny Eye or Thought, which is the energy source of these objects, has as one of its meanings the idea of keeping something alive in the heart and mind. So, when a giver takes a piece of trash and uses it as a weapon, they are actually reclaiming the feeling that still lives within that object. This power isn't just brute force, it's essentially feelings like longing, abandonment, and even hope. Now that you understand what a giver and a Shiny Eye are, let's better understand Jinkis, or vital instruments, which are the weapons used by these givers. The word Jinki can have several meanings in Japanese, such as sacred treasure, divine tool, or human weapon, depending on the context. Interestingly, this is very reminiscent of a concept from Japanese folklore called tsukumogami, which refers to inanimate objects that gain life and spirit after reaching 100 years of existence. These objects, which can be household utensils, tools, musical instruments, or even weapons, acquire consciousness and personalities of their own, becoming spiritual beings. In Gachiakuta, it works something like this. When someone places love, care, and attention on an object, that object absorbs feelings and thoughts over time. The more genuine this affection, the better and stronger the object becomes when it becomes a Jinki. Furthermore, the Jinki's power also reflects the user's personality, experience, and worldview. When a giver awakens a Jinki for the first time, they automatically understand what powers that object will have, and it becomes a kind of extension of the person's soul. Because of this, whenever a giver awakens their Jinki, their name is engraved on it, making it stronger. The giver can also remove the name to restrict some of the Jinki's power, as there are some Jinkis that are so powerful that if used at their full power, they can harm their giver. Furthermore, a Jinki's powers can also be unconsciously restricted when the user hides their feelings. There is also a special type of Jinki, much older and more powerful than normal Jinki, containing thoughts so powerful they can drive an ordinary person insane. These Jinki are called the Watchman series. Each of these weapons has profound meanings, representing a piece of history lost in the world of Gachiakuta. Some ancient users of these special Jinki were the only ones able to freely move between the ground and the sphere. Furthermore, only people who have experienced great tragedies and lost something important can wield the Watchman series. Any ordinary person who attempts to wield these weapons will have their mind consumed by the enormous thought within them, and they will go insane in the process. Ruto is one of the few characters who can wield a Jinki from the Watchman series without losing their sanity, as the gloves he wears, called the 3R, are one of these relics. When Ruto activates the glove's power, they don't change shape. In fact, No Watchmen series changes, they simply acquire a powerful aura around them. But the Monio, if Ruto's gloves are one of those Jinkis from the Watchmen series, these gloves must have some special power. And I tell you, yes, Ruto's gloves have the ability to transform any discarded object into a Jinki. The 3 reads the thoughts remaining in that object, which is the emotional energy stored within it. By touching these objects, Ruto extracts every last drop of energy stored in the object, temporarily transforming it into a Jinki. Ruto can do this in 2 different ways. Create 3 Jinkis at once, or concentrate all the power into a single Jinki, making it 3 times more powerful. But this comes at a cost, since the more he uses the 3R, the more worn out it becomes. So, if he creates 3 weapons or a super weapon, he ends up with nosebleeds and becomes extremely exhausted. Furthermore, the used objects cannot be reused, since after they fulfill their purpose, they disintegrate and disappear. Ruto's ability to use a wide variety of objects is very interesting and creative, especially during fights, which are always very entertaining, as Ruto is always using different objects in different ways, completely changing the dynamics of the fights. This is a major differentiator for this anime, in my opinion. But what about you? Did you already know about Gachiakuta's powers? Are you watching the anime? Leave a comment, and if you liked the video, subscribe to see more content. Until next time my people, demonic hugs.